I think this is great, Bena, and I can say that in the book we have got chapters from different schools which are using habits of mind, and I was wondering if you have got any results, or if you have made any observations in those certified schools to see what is the impact of habits of mind, mostly in what areas, for example, in students' social and emotional skills, or in their academic achievement.
Yes, yes, yes. I think we have a list of the kinds of areas that we ask people to pay attention to. So we ask them to pay attention to the academics, because that's critical. The school is the place where we are cultivating and developing the habits of mind in relationship to the academic standards, in relationship to all of the things that we know that we're going to map out in our curriculum. So certainly the focus of our story is where we want them to be developing some of the knowledge and skills, but the story also includes how the habits of mind grow because of their attention to the way they give meaning to what they're learning. So how do they process it and think about it? Then we also have it for the parents. We want people to really be concerned, because parents are very interested in this and want to know, what can I do at home to support my kids with the habits of mind? And I think that there are so many things that we see happening with parents these days, because what happened with hybrid learning, and I think right now, if I'm understanding right, you probably in Turkey are doing more hybrid learning. And one of the things that's really interesting about that is, I mean, there's the good news and the bad news. But one of the interesting things is the parents are now in the place where the kids are learning. So it isn't, we send you to school, we go to work, well, here, did you have a nice day? It's like we are observing our children in front of a computer learning, and a teacher teaching, and homework that they're being asked to do. And we're more involved now as parents with, what does this mean and how can I be most helpful? And what does it mean as a parent to really be encouraging my child to be persisting when they're not so sure what they're doing? What are the options? How do we teach them to go to find the resources that they need? So we're finding that the parent piece of this now has been strengthened by the need from parents seeing more likely, are kids really doing the work, learning how to do the work, and learning how to become independent? And what we hear a lot about these days is that the answer is, when I observe my kids, they wait for me to tell them, did you do your homework? Did you get this done? How can I help you? What can I do? And we're realizing that that sense of agency, of self-direction, needs to be strengthened. And so schools are putting more attention to that now. And then we also do a lot of work with assessment, which is, how do you know if they're getting any better? How do you know, as Art said, there's no such thing as mastery, but there is such a thing as growth. So how do you know if they're getting any better? And how would you observe that? And what are some strategies that you can use to observe that? So Art, you want to pick up one of you too? I was kind of rattling off.
Well, you started off, Bena, by saying that we're very interested in academics. And of course we are. We want students to know their maths, and we want them to be able to read, and we want them to be able to know something about history and our culture. And what we find is that it's inseparable. You cannot understand academics without understanding the habits of mind as well. So they're taught together. You have to find lots of examples. If you'd like to see an example of that, I've contributed to a recent blog on our website looking at the James Webb Telescope and which habits of mind are being used to explore space. And very certainly the driving force, as you must know, for the scientists to explore space is wonderment and awe. But that's not all. They also are questioning and problem posing. And the James Webb Telescope produces more questions for us than it gives us answers. In other words, we still don't know if there is life on other planets, but we're beginning to think that there is through research from James Webb Telescope. So what I'm saying is that in teaching the science, it's very important that the behaviors of the scientists are taught at the same time. You cannot understand scientific principles if you don't understand what the scientists did to produce those. And so understanding the habits of mind behind the academics is as important as the academics are themselves. For example, let's say you're teaching kids reading. Fine. Much of reading is a metacognitive process. And if you have to be conscious of what the words mean. Well, let me ask you a question. Have you ever been reading along and all of a sudden you realize that your brain is wandering, that you've lost track of where you are in the text? Well, how do you get back on task? In other words, that's a metacognitive process. So reading is basically metacognition. And if you understand more about metacognition, you can understand reading. Same is true in math. Most of the math problems that we teach kids, we check for right answers. Well, let's ask kids how they produce those answers. What was going on in your head to come up with that answer? And when you ask a classroom of 30 kids, or how many ever you have, you come up with about 30 different ways of coming up with the answer. That's all metacognition. So what I'm saying is that the academics are important. Of course they are. And what makes them rich and teachable and learnable are the habits of mind that accompany them.
I just put in the chat the article, the little blog you did with Craig on the James Webb Telescope. So if anybody wants to check it out, it's there.
Thank you. So I have one more question about if a school wants to learn more about habits of mind, or if a teacher wants to learn about habits of mind and implement some strategies, what are the resources where they can find those resources? I know you have got a wonderful website. Do you want to talk about that as well?
Yeah, well, actually, if you go to that telescope one, you'll be on the website. But I'm sorry, Art, go ahead.
No, well, a fellow in Turkey who just organized a book for us. So that's a place to begin. Buy the book.